So as we get started here, I do want to encourage you to, to go ahead and ask questions. You can make comments, interject. I'm trying to make this as much as close to a live in-person session as we can within the limitations of the media, of course. And you should feel free to participate. If you have a question, just go ahead and ask it. I'll probably end up asking you to repeat it because I won't hear it the first time very well. But in any event, this is an open session. And now I'm going to share my screen. And that's not the one, this one. And we'll kind of get into this here. And we'll come back to this like in a second. I'm just going to start my presentation slides and also set up my participants over here. And also set up my chat. So I do have a chat window open. If you want to comment that way, that's fine. I have it kind of over here. You can see I have to turn my head pretty completely to look at it. So it may be that, oh shoot, this was supposed to be at the beginning. Anyway, a little bit of technical mystery as we get started here. And anyway, tonight's class is Tour of the Dark Web. If you're here for something else, feel free to stay. But if you're here for something else, then you're in the wrong spot. All right, here we go. And my name's Bob Weiss, and you can see I collect the alphabetical letters and string them behind my name in an effort to improve my self-esteem, I guess we could say. But what these are, of course, are abbreviations for technical certifications that I've earned over the years working with, sorry, I'm just trying to do a little screen magic here, working in the profession of information technology and cybersecurity since about the year 2000. So I've been at this 20 years, and some of these certifications are specifically for cybersecurity, which is kind of the area that we're delving into tonight. And some of them are more generalized. Other experience that I have, I am a member of 3 of the larger cybersecurity professional associations here in the Twin Cities, and I sit on the board for 2 of them. I have been a speaker at the annual Secure 360 cybersecurity event. It's a 2-day event that has been held in downtown St. Paul and at the Minneapolis Convention Center, and out at Treasure Island Casino. And most recently, last week, in fact, we held the Secure 360 virtually for the very first time ever, because of course you can't get 2,000 people into a big meeting space and have a conference right now. My LinkedIn handle, if you want to connect to me on LinkedIn, is Wise Guy. My Twitter handle is Wise Guys with the plural. And I have a website at wiseguyscybersecurity.com. And that's what we're going to look at right now. This is my website and blog. I write cybersecurity articles of what I would call a general interest nature. I try to keep them from being like super technical and targeted for, say, just other information security professionals. This is for individuals and owners of small businesses to basically read and learn how to protect yourself from all the mayhem that's going on out there on the internet. And today, for instance, this is today's post, kind of suitable for what we're going to be engaged in here. It says anyone can buy do-it-yourself malware kits, and there are places that you can go and purchase all the goods that you need to become an instant cyber criminal, starting for like $50. $50 to $5,000, and according to the my sources here. And we are going to take a look at linkbase.org tonight. This is a new addition to the tour, and but if any of you are looking for a way to supplement your current income, cybersecurity is probably not a great way to go. But nevertheless, we have so many people getting into this business because it's kind of easy and approachable, and it's been automated and mechanized, and what can I tell you? I own, together with my bride of 43 years, the Wiseco Group. I work as a cybersecurity analyst. Primarily these days I'm working as an instructor, and I mentioned I'm teaching a rather lengthy course of study to the cybersecurity crew at Mayo Clinic, but I've worked with the U.S. Air Force. I've worked with different governmental agencies. I've done training for I'm not going to remember the company now in Egan, but in any event, I've done a lot of training over the years, including about 18 years doing community education classes like this one. I started out in Stillwater Community Ed in 2001, teaching a do-it-yourself web design class and my first cybersecurity class. And in fact, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we did the cybersecurity class here in Stillwater Community Ed for the first time since 2015. So let's talk a little bit about what the dark web is anyway. And again, as I said before, if you have questions or want me to explain something a little bit more, or if you'd like to offer a comment of your own, feel free to just, jump in and let's, and we'll do that. So the dark web is a part of the internet where privacy, secrecy, security, and anonymity are top priorities. So we're talking about keeping things private, keeping things secret, staying anonymous, being untraceable, being untrackable. Communications are difficult to trace due to the use of virtual private networks, encryption, and proxy chains. And we'll talk a little bit about these things in more detail in a minute. But if these are products or concepts you're not familiar with, feel free to ask. And then I've got Your Terrorist is my freedom fighter in here. This network, the dark web, is used by drug dealers and armed dealers and terrorists. Well, Your Terrorist is my freedom fighter in some cases, right? It just depends on your point of view. Also used by spies, pornographers, cyber criminals, hackers, traitors. Well, your traitor might be my whistleblower. And, but specifically thinking of, Edward Snowden, whatever your opinion, he saw himself as a whistleblower. The government sees him as a traitor, and how that all works out really depends on if he ever leaves, Moscow and comes back to the United States. But the dark web's also used by, very legitimately by journalists, whistleblowers, foreign aid workers. When you're a foreign aid worker working in a country, especially if it's like in a war zone, or if it's in a country where the government is, maybe not the greatest, being a foreign aid worker can be dangerous, and using a communications method like the dark web will keep that government from being able to figure out, what you're doing, or intercept and read your email and things like that. Missionaries, ditto, same story. Politically oppressed in a variety of countries. We had the Arab Spring, 4 or 5 years ago now, and a lot of that happened on the social networks like Facebook and what have you, but a lot of that also happened on the dark web. And U.S. State Department, military personnel, both the U.S. military and foreign militaries use the dark web all the time. Cyber commandos like the U.S. Cyber Command, the Russian FSB, the Iranian and Syrian, Korean cyber war, cyber command groups all use the dark web. Law enforcement is getting into the dark web, mostly for, like law enforcement purposes, but for other purposes in the United Nations. And you're going, well, that's kind of a diverse group. How'd that all happen? But before I answer that question, we're going to take a look a little bit at the internet as it exists. And we have the surface web. This is where we are all very comfortably spending most of our time. This is where Google and Wikipedia and Amazon and Bing and all these Facebook are all live on the surface web. Then we have the deep web, and the deep web is basically the contents of online databases, would be a simple way to put it. This is information that is accessible from, that you can get to, but usually requires that you have a user ID and a password to get into these websites. This would be sites like your banking website, insurance websites, work-related websites that you can only get into if you actually work there and have a employee log on, things like that. Then this is what we call the deep web. The deep web exists. It's reasonably accessible. There's nothing special about the way it's constructed or built, but it's not Google searchable because it exists behind login windows. So when Google's indexing the internet, if you need a user ID and password to get in there, Google doesn't have that information and they can't index those records. So in the deep web, you really kind of have to know what you're looking for. And then there's the dark web. The dark web, how do I want to put this? It says illegal, Tor encrypted sites, and we're going to talk a bit more about Tor in a second. Private communications, drug trafficking sites, but really the dark web exists under a really interesting layer of encryption and anonymizing systems that make it very difficult to basically track somebody back to the source or whatever. So we're going to get into how to move around the dark web, and it takes a special type of a browser. And we're going to talk about the Tor browser. The Onion router is what it stands for, T-O-R, and Tails, and some of the other dark networks that are out there now. Tor stands for the Onion router. You can download and install Tor on your own computer for free at the torproject.org. And the dark web exists inside weird proxy networks, so-called darknets. These darknets, Tor is by far the largest. I'm just going to have to, here we are. Tor is the largest. The suffix of its native domains, .onion, has become synonymous with internet freedom, privacy, and anonymity. The .onion domain is not, technically speaking, a true actual domain, but this is how you identify Tor sites, Tor accessible sites on the dark web. Tor is a communication network that creates a chain of anonymous proxy servers that relays traffic to and from the dark web. And when we're talking about a chain of anonymous proxy servers, let's like explain it this way. Basically, when I start the Tor browser, it is going to pick 6 or 7 or 8 different little machines, different computers or servers that are working in the Tor network and create a route. And then your information is encrypted, and it's encrypted as many times as you have servers. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's 5. And so there's 5 layers of encryption, and every time it gets handed off to another server on the route, 1 layer of encryption comes off, and by the time it gets to the end, now it's in a readable format. This makes it really difficult to backtrack, and then the routes do change, like all the time. So if you think of it as, okay, so let's say you take this class and you get really excited about this and you decide, boy, I want to join in the Tor project. Well, you can actually set up your computer, or you can get a computer and set it up to be a Tor relay node and join the fun out there. Okay. So am I recommending you do that? No. Do I do that? No, I don't. I could, but no, I'm not. So Tor uses a customized version of Firefox browser to traverse the dark web, and Tor was invented by the U.S. Navy. So if you're wondering how this all dark web thing started, you'd have to thank the Navy, because it was created by the U.S. Navy in the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory and developed in the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. You may have heard of them. DARPA was actually involved in the creation of the internet in the very late 60s, 68, 69, and 70s, and then spun it off to private companies that are, became the early internet service providers. Tor was launched in 2002 with funding from the Broadcasting Board of Governors, and this is the organization that puts on Radio Free Europe and Radio Marti, which is broadcast into Cuba, and Voice of America and services of that nature. The National Science Foundation, the U.S. State Department, Human Rights Watch, University of Cambridge, and Google. 80% of the $2 million annual budget comes from the U.S. government. So next time you're thinking about all those terrible criminals on the dark web, well, we only got ourselves to thank for this whole mess. But anyway, that's, what we have. This is a screenshot of the Tor homepage. You can go to torproject.org and download versions for Windows, for Apple, for Linux, for Android, and set yourself up a Tor browser in a reasonably quick order, actually. Here we have a diagram. So here's my computer here, a Tor client, and this is what basically a proxy chain would look like. So the green line shows what's encrypted by Tor. So starting with my client, there's encryption to the entry guard, and then through the middle relays. They just show one relay here, but there's really several. And then an exit relay. From the exit relay to the destination, it's actually no longer encrypted, but this is such a difficult route to trace that it doesn't really do anyone much good to be able to get this last little bit here. So that's the onion router. Then we have TAILS. TAILS is another acronym that stands for the AMNESIAC Incognito Live System. And by AMNESIAC Incognito, what they're saying is here is, I'm going to forget everything that happened in that session, and I'm going to be completely anonymous. And this is basically, here's the website for Tails. Um, Tails is a live Linux-based operating system that you can install to a USB stick or burn to a DVD disk and use it to start a computer in a Linux operating system and then launch a Tor browser. And everything that you do on a computer is generally saved in some log somewhere inside the Windows operating system. So if you're, using your computer to engage in criminal activity, even if you're really careful and even if you kind of know what you're doing, it's still really, really easy to leave remnants behind that can be used against you in a court or what have you. Or just to say that you're doing work that requires the utmost privacy and secrecy. Well, whatever you're doing in your computer leaves traces in that computer. By using an external operating system like this one, basically everything you do is limited to that session. And when you power off Tails and you take the flash drive out of the computer, the flash drive contains no information about your session, and the computer, you were just using the hardware part of the computer. The Windows operating system or the Apple operating system that was in there was never turned on, was never used, and so there are no traces that are left behind in the use of it. So this is sort of like your perfect anonymous system. If you're doing some kind of work that requires the utmost secrecy, this would be your answer. Okay. So here we have their website, the Tails website, privacy for anyone, anywhere. Live operating system you can start on almost any computer from a USB stick or a DVD. That's what we talked about. So if you're going hunting on the dark web, you're going to run across some websites that are fairly questionable. We're going to see some actual websites in a bit. And well, not some there, I've got a whole bunch of them. And, we're going to get into that pretty quickly here. If you're going to do research on the dark web and you're going to be a spy hunter or go after cyber criminals or what have you, and there are people that do that work. I might be one of those people. I'm not really terribly active at it, but I have developed a little specialty in phishing email attacks. And in fact, in my weblog, I have something called now the Friday Fish Fry, where we feature email attacks that I received in my inbox during the week, or that a client or somebody has shared with me during the week, and I do some analysis of these. So I encourage you, go onto my website, take a look at the Friday postings. I've only been doing it for like 4 or 5 weeks now, but this Friday especially, I'm completely dissecting a phishing email attack, and including like the landing page and what happens when you click through and do things like that. So in order to do that research, there's something I do. The first thing is I'm not using my primary computer. I'm using a special computer that I have just for the experience of research. And if bad things happen to that computer, it doesn't affect any of my, pictures of my last 3 vacations and my grandchild. It's just, it's a sacrificial system. It runs on a Linux operating system. Linux is not immune or super secure or anything fancy like that. It's just that when it comes down to the number of exploits that have been written to attack computer systems, the number one by far is Windows. So if I can stay off of a Windows operating system, I'm less likely to get counter-attacked. Using Linux, Linux has the fewest number of exploits written for it and pretty good built-in security, and so Linux is the way to go. I can run that as a virtual machine, which means that instead of, well, in any event, if I run it as a virtual machine, I can basically replace it with an exact copy of itself in the matter of a few minutes. I could use a virtual private network. A virtual private network is an encryption system that makes it difficult for somebody to backtrace my activities. So if I'm online investigating bad guys, I'm using a VPN, I'm using a virtual machine, I'm using Tor, they're not going to be able to figure out my IP address and get, you know, my location figured out from that IP address. So it protects me. It makes it a little bit more safe. If you're doing BitTorrenting, which is torrent, or if you're doing torrenting, and if you are, you know what a torrent is, and if you aren't, a torrent is a way to download something that's kind of a bigger file, like a music file, or perhaps a video, a movie, a TV show, the entire, you know, season 5 episodes of Game of Thrones. The quickest way to download that to your own computer is using a technology called torrenting, where you basically get 6 or 7 simultaneous connections and download the movie real quickly. Is this illegal? In most cases, when people are torrenting this stuff, they're basically taking it off of a site where it has been posted without paying the proper royalties. So yeah, it's illegal. The reason you don't want to torrent over Tor is that when you open up that many streams, the security that is inherent in Tor kind of goes away, because you've got 6 different streams coming at you, and I will figure out where you're at. So you can't use Tor to BitTorrent movies for free illegally and not get caught. Don't enable or install any browser plugins, because they will circumvent some of the security. Use only the secure versions, the HTTPS versions of websites. Don't open documents downloaded through Tor while still online. So let's say you're out on a Tor site and there's a PDF file that you would like to download, and it's perfectly fine, you know, it's legal for you to do that, and you download that PDF file. What you want to do is disconnect from Tor and take yourself offline and open that file and take a look at it. You may want to open that file and run some anti-malware analysis against it, you know, anti-malware scan against that. The reason you don't open documents downloaded through Tor is that the document can be infected with the type of software that would, here again, reveal where you are or who you are, or it might install software in your computer that allows somebody to take it over, and that would be a bad thing. And then supporting Tor bridge relays. A bridge relay is to help people in countries like China that actively filter and block Tor to get around those governmental filters and blocks. So for every time that, you know, a government or other entity tries to interfere with the free transmission of information, somebody comes up with a clever way around it. And that's the nature of, I guess, what I do in cybersecurity work, is making sure that only the right information goes through, and that, you know, but in any event, you know, again, your freedom fighter is my terrorist, and my freedom fighter is your terrorist. So it's all kind of you know, perception. So did I? Yeah, okay, we got that. Tor can be used to securely anonymously connect to any traditional website as well. So if you just are tired of being tracked by Google and Amazon and people like that when you're online, you can go through Tor and go to your regular websites, you will find that in some cases, some websites won't work correctly. And like going to your banking website with Tor, banking websites look for things like where you're logging in from. It's a security thing. If you log in to, if somebody logs into your bank account from Paris and you're not in Paris, you want them to notice that and and block that. Well, when I'm using Tor, depending on the chain of relays, I'll look like I'm in the UK or Germany or France or any number of places, and so those kind of sites just don't work well that way. But Tor is the only browser that can connect you to the .onion websites. There are other dark web websites that are on different dark nets. But if you're using Tor, or if you're looking for onion sites, which we'll get into, those in a minute, you need to use Tor in order to do that. And next, other dark web browsers and networks include Freenet, which is a peer-to-peer platform for censorship-resistant communication and publishing, and GNUnet, an alternate network stack for building secure, decentralized, and privacy-preserving distributed applications. So this isn't really a network so much as a software platform for development. I2P is an anonymous overlay network, a network within a network. It is intended to protect communication from dragnet surveillance and monitoring. OneSwarm, which is a P2P client, a person-to-person or peer-to-peer client developed at the University of Washington State. And then RetroShare, which is a free open source cross-platform decentralized secure communication platform. And we're rapidly coming to the end of my slides. I actually have slides to take us all the way through the tour, but I checked before class and the dark web's working today, so we're going to do it. We're going to tour it live, actually, and have some, kind of see some things, have some fun here. So I'm going to end the slideshow, but before we get into this, I go to great lengths to make sure that my, the dark websites we're visiting are, shall we say, suitable for work kind of a thing, but you just never know. And if you're easily offended, you might see things that, we try to be clear that this is a live tour. Now, like I said, I went through this, all the different spots we're going to earlier, and we should be fine. But there ends my disclaimer. So this is, basically Tor right here. It's a browser. I could have started it from, well, let's just go back here. We'll just get rid of that. I'm just going to start it again from my little link. Basically, when you install it, it installs just like another browser. So you've got Firefox, you've got Chrome, you've got Microsoft Edge or Safari, and then you've got Tor. And of course, now I'm doing this, Tor is trying to update itself, but it looks like it's going to come up here pretty quick. And so here we are. Should have stuck with well enough here. There was a quick little flash on the other screen. You weren't able to see it, but it showed it was up my Tor nodes here. So we've got a whole list of bookmarks here we're going to be going through. Looks like I've got an hour, almost an hour and a half, which should be just about perfect. But let's get started here on Tor. So this is, what it looks like. There's a search box in the middle of it. It uses DuckDuckGo as a search engine. Anybody worked with DuckDuckGo? I don't care if you put up a hand or if you like say something in the microphone. Familiar with DuckDuckGo? Where's one hand? Okay, well, I'm going to recommend that you give it a look, especially if you are using Google as your principal search engine. But even if you're not, let's say you're using Bing. Oh, guess what? Google runs behind Bing. I mean, that Bing is licensing the Google search engine from Google and calling it Bing. And so if you're really interested in using a search engine that isn't tracking you and provides just as good search results, you might want to try DuckDuckGo. But let's get up here in the corner here, new to Tor. Let's get started. So, welcome. Here we get a little slideshow. Tor offers the highest standard in privacy and security while browsing the web. Privacy, Tor browser isolates cookies and deletes your browser history after your session. These modifications ensure that your privacy and security are protected in the browser. Click Tor Network to learn how we protect you at the network level. And so Tor browser connects you to Tor network run by thousands of volunteers around the world. Unlike a VPN, there's no one point of failure or a centralized entity you need to trust in order to enjoy the internet privately. New Tor network settings, including the ability to request bridges where Tor is blocked, can now be found in preferences. So now we're going to go to the circuit display, and this is actually a display. When I click on See My Path, it's going to show me. I'm going to open a new tab, and it's going to show me. Well, first we get DuckDuckGo because that's where we're searching. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, how do circuits work? Circuits are made up of randomly assigned relays, which are computers around the world configured to forward Tor traffic. Circuits allow you to bounce privately and to connect to onion services. So we click on Next. This is my current circuit, okay? So we have the browser here. We have a guard relay in the United States and the IP address 144.202.49.171. If I were to do a search, and how would I do that? Well, you can go to a website called whatismyip.com, enter this, and it will tell me not only what part of the United States, but it should give me a city, might give me the name of the company that, or the name of the hosting company that's hosting this Tor relay. We're not going to do that research because I don't think that's why you came, but I'm just saying these cute little IP address numbers, you can enter those into a simple search tool on the web and just Google IP Finder or find an IP address, and you can enter these IP addresses, and this would give us the actual cities in Germany where the relays are physically located. Then we have some anonymous relays, and then this onion site is in fact the DuckDuckGo website. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 relays for this circuit. Now you see this new circuit for this site. Keep an eye on the United States and the Germany. If I click on new circuit, now I've got Germany and France. And so if I think that at any point that I've been using the same circuit for too long and I want to get, myself clear and protected again, you can just like shoot for a new circuit. But in this particular case, like that banking website we were talking about, whatever country this relay is in is going to be where I appear to be coming from on any website that I'm visiting. So next here, Let me close that. So that tells us how Tor works. Circuit display, security. Also provide you with additional settings for bumping your browser security. So if we click on see your security level here, we can see that I'm at the standard level. But if I want to, I can increase my safety to a safer level and the safest level and set up other types of privacy and security settings and use a Tor bridge. Well, I don't need to use a Tor bridge because unfortunately for me, I'm in the United States. And, you know, configure how a Tor browser connects to the internet. I use a proxy to connect to the internet. Well, proxies are being used a lot in standard network configurations now, especially by bigger companies, in order to provide a single point where all incoming and outgoing web traffic can be filtered and monitored. And if you have one of those systems, you'd have to set up Tor to use that proxy. And that's how you would do that. So any questions? This is a little bit more technical than I bet you were expecting to get today, but this is basically how Tor works here. Let's see, onion services are sites that end with a .onion that provide extra protections to publishers and visitors, including safeguards against censorship.
A question.
Yes, go ahead.
What you're doing now, you're live on in Tor. So
yes.
Is that true then that we can't follow through along with the notes that we downloaded from your PowerPoint?
Okay, the notes that are in my PowerPoint, there are a number of pages where there's a .onion address that you know is given there, and you would need to set up Tor and connect like I did here to the dark web in order to use those links. So if the question is, can you duplicate this experience for yourself later?
Should we just put those notes aside and just follow directly on the screen from now on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because the you know the notes are from the slides, you know, that I'm not showing you because we don't need the slides tonight.
Okay.
But it's sort of like this: when you've taught enough, you know, when you've taught enough classes, you've learned to pretty much be prepared for anything that can go wrong to go wrong. I've gone into a classroom and had the projector bulb be burned out, and then of course it's really tough to use the projector. So I went out and bought my own projector. You know, with the dark web, you know, the dark web's like an interesting place, and by interesting I mean kind of kooky and scary, and it doesn't necessarily follow conventional norms. And from time to time, the police, you know, the FBI, Interpol, international consortium of police departments will take over and close a Tor marketplace. I've had like 5 or 6 different marketplaces that I've taken, you know, this tour of the dark web to, and they're gone. They keep going away. But why? Because they're selling like heroin, guns, you know, they're selling things that are generally speaking illegal. And part of the charm of the dark web is that it's hard to figure out where these websites are, and even harder to figure out who's in charge of running them because of the way it's set up. But trust me when I tell you, the police are getting really, really good at taking down Tor stuff, and we'll see some examples of that in a bit. But anyway, so here we have Tor. Learn more about Tor. I don't think we need to. Tor blog. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry, I kind of blew through there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I have another question now.
Sure.
When you're using the dark web and so on, sending this stuff through all the servers, can you do text and video and graphics and everything, or just?
Yeah, you can do everything on the dark web that you can do on the regular web. All the technology works the same way. The only thing that's different is the layers of encryption. Basically, if you think about it, when you're working on the regular internet and you type some information into a web form, if that's just a simple HTTP site, that all that information that you typed in there is in plain English that anybody can read if they can intercept the packets. And there's tools that you can intercept the packets. So let's just say that's readable. If I encrypt it, that puts one layer of confusion around what I've written, and theoretically the person I sent it to should be able to decrypt it and read it. With Tor, we're doing like 6 or 7 layers of encryption, and that makes it really, really, really tough if you don't have the final decryption key. It makes it kind of impossible to capture and read what those links are like. Now, police departments, including the FBI and the CIA and people like that, are running Tor nodes, and especially Tor exit nodes, because that last layer of encryption comes off in an exit node and can be read. And so some of the Tor exit nodes are being run by governments and police departments and what have you. But the information they gather that way is completely random and totally luck of the draw. For them to actually find something that's useful running an exit node, it's kind of a low percentage play, but it does happen. Anybody can run a Tor exit node. There's no controlling entity that says, oh yes, you're definitely a Tor. No, anybody can be in Tor, including the police, and they are. So anyway, here's the Tor blog. You can read about stuff there. Now we're going to get off into some of the resources. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is the hidden wiki. You can get to the hidden wiki on the regular internet, but this is the way. Okay, so web search, the way we know it and love it with Google, doesn't exist on the dark web. Because of all the secrecy and the encryption, and the fact that a lot of these sites are membership sites and what have you, there's just nobody that's indexing this material. So we've gone back to the way it was with AOL and dial-up internet, and I'm sure there's a few people in the room who remember those days besides me. And with AOL, when you got on AOL, they had a nice little list of places that they recommended you could go and see cool stuff. Well, this is what the hidden wiki is. It's a list of Tor sites. So we have, editor's picks. These are top 5 things that, the editor of the hidden wiki thinks are cool. Okay. Volunteer information, introduction points. So we have DuckDuckGo, Tor links, Torch. These are all search engines that work interestingly on the dark web. All right, there are people trying to create search for the dark web, but it really doesn't work that way. So then we have financial services. So the Green Machine, Forum, Type Marketplace with some of the oldest and most experienced vendors around. Get your PayPal, a credit card. Now, when they're saying get your PayPal, this is not where you sign up for a PayPal account. This is where you buy like a couple hundred PayPal accounts that belong to other people and use their money to buy stuff. Okay, so this is, shall we say, not strictly legal activity going on this particular website. And there's, a bunch of others. Then we have commercial services, guns, dark market. Well, I wonder what we could buy there. Counterfeiting Center, store to buy passports, ID cards, credit cards, offshore bank accounts, and counterfeit money. Domain services, onion name, choose your desired domain name prefix, order the onion domain starting for 45, 0.45 Bitcoin. So at some point in time, I'm going to spend that money because, quite frankly, I want to have a website on the dark web. It's a cool thing for me to do. So, someday I'll be doing the tour and we'll be going to, Bob's website. But fake ID generator, email and messaging. We got blogs, essays, wikis, social networks, whistleblowing. So here's WikiLeaks, DocSpin, Secure Drop, hosting website developing. Now we get into it. Drugs, Weed and Company. Anybody think you know what they're selling there? People's Drugstore. We'll go visiting there in a little bit. And of course, adult content, can't have that. And then there's some non-English. If you want to have some fun in a foreign language, there's some sites here. So this is basically how you find things on the dark web. I will say this, the Hidden Wiki was recently updated. For a long time, it seemed like nobody was keeping it up to date. And there were about 50% of the links were links to sites that were no longer existed. And, but I'd like to say it's a little bit better. There's another similar site called Tor Links. And a lot of basically same information. Here's the green machine again. But here you have, financial, commercial, drugs, domain services, erotic gambling, services, hacking, wares. Wares is where you can buy interestingly built software. So wares, it might be like Microsoft Office, but with a fake license key, so that you can basically get it for cheap or close to free or what have you. Forums, which basically are like big chats. I'm sort of slowly working my way toward the forums. I kind of want to get involved with that in terms of some of the research that I'm doing. And I just haven't quite found the forum that I'm looking for yet, blogs and what have you. So this is, again, very similar list. And then we have some search engines. There's one called Torch, which is a mashup of Tor search. And so, we could try this out. And I want to go looking for guns. Well, there's, and then the advertising is like insane in the dark web. There's advertising here too. But, Pandora Marketplace you find stuff, but it's, dark web gun traffickers indicted for. And so it can be challenging finding what you're looking for. And then we've already looked at DuckDuckGo, but we might as well take another look. And this is pretty much the way it looks like on the light, on the light side of the web. And again, if you're looking for a new search experience, this might be something to try. Proton Mail. Proton Mail is available on the dark web, but it's also available on the light web. And it's a fully encrypted email service that provides total anonymity when using email. I happen to have an account here. You'll notice my passwords are very long. Hopefully I didn't miss a letter there. Long passwords are tougher to crack, and now we need to two passwords to get in here, but basically it looks just like email. And here's an email I threw in there last month. Be offering our tour of the dark web class, I mean, but if you're looking for an anonymous way to send the email, you could sign up for a Proton Mail account, and it would help. So we will log off of here. And move on to our next. Now there's another alternative for secure mail on the dark web, and that's mail to tor.addonion. And there we have mail to Tor right there. And, you know, this is something that if you're interested in, you might want to come back and check out. And we're going to take a look at some straight up news organizations. I have ProPublica, BBC, and the New York Times. All three of these organizations, in addition to their own website, have, you know, regular, shall we say, you know, you can get your news online. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just, well, you know, if you live in a country where you can get in trouble reading news that hasn't been through the governmental filters, this would be one way that you could do that and be reasonably safe in doing so. You know, especially if you were using tails, because if you pull that tails key out of the computer and there's nothing in the key and there's nothing in the computer, all that they have is that you've got a flash drive, you know. So here's BBC, you know, home for BBC, and then the New York Times. Facebook also has an Onion site. You can see the address here is Facebook core www.i onion. So, you know, Facebook evidently paid a certain amount of money to get a very, you know, a vanity Onion address. Why wouldn't we expect that? Now you'll notice I'm not logged into my Facebook account, and if you do spend any amount of time on the dark web, you really want to separate your light web and dark web identities from each other. And it's really nice if you don't use a single identity on the dark web, but if you like keep changing it up from time to time, because it makes it tougher for them to connect your dark web activities back to you on the, you know, normal web. Now, why would you want to do that? You don't always have to be engaged in criminal activity to want to keep things like super secret. Maybe you're inventing something and you want to, you know, the communications about your new product to, you know, to be useless to anybody who might intercept it, you know, things like that. But anyway, with Facebook, I don't have a dark web ID on Facebook, and I'm not going to use my light web ID on Facebook and let it be a way for, you know, some malcontent or evildoer to track me back to my, you know, to my own identity. And is that like a really significant, scary thing that could happen? Yeah. There's a guy named Brian Krebs. He's got a cybersecurity website like I do called Krebs on Security. He worked for the Washington Post, I believe it was the Post, as the technology writer. And then he got laid off, so he started his own thing. Well, he's become a major league and I do mean major league cybersecurity investigator specializing on credit card breaches. That he was the one that broke the Target Christmas credit card breach, and what have you. And he's annoyed enough Russian cyber criminals that one of them decided to have him arrested for dealing drugs, and actually sent heroin to his door and informed the police that it was going to be arriving. And he's received, like, um, funeral wreaths been delivered to his home and things like that. So, yeah, it can be. Now, the guy that sent him the heroin is currently serving time in a U.S. prison. He was captured, and for inter, for international mailing of heroin, he got some time. So, it kind of backfired on the guy. But let's just say that some of these people are not very nice people. Next thing we're looking at here is Keybase, and this basically provides another way for you to encrypt things that uses a public key and a private key, and adds just one more layer of an encryption to everything you're doing. Is there a fee for a Proton Mail account? There are free. There is a free package. I have the free one, and do the news sites contain the same info? I think so. I think the news sites are basically going to be, headline for headline. You have to remember, I mean, as here in the United States, things are pretty straight up, and we have, may I dare say, most of the liberties guaranteed to us in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Not true in countries like Iran or Syria or Saudi Arabia, even, where Saudi Arabia is like, fairly westernized, but not really. And so if you want to be reading certain kinds of stuff that, articles that say are uncomplimentary of the royalty in Saudi Arabia, that can get you in trouble. So you might want to do that reading on Tor. So it's just sort of, why would I want to read my news on Tor? Well, you can be one of the cool kids. Just kidding. You actually be one of the nerds. You'd become a nerd because you're reading your news on Tor. But or you're living in a place where things are much scarier than they are in the United States. So anyway, this is another. Here we have the obtain your .onion address. So someday when I decide I'm going to do this, this is where I'm going to have to go to do that. And then I have to basically create a Bitcoin wallet somewhere, because they only do financial transactions in Bitcoin. Bitcoin has become sort of an interesting new international monetary unit. It is not underwritten by any government, and it has absolutely no value except what everybody thinks it has. And the value fluctuates like mad. Right now it's kind of at a midpoint. But in any event, because money spent in Bitcoin is tough to track. Bitcoin's become the universal currency in the dark web. Can you access Tor from Android? Yes. Yeah, there's a Tor app for Android. And actually, because the mobile phones pose a little greater risk of being hacked, partly because they're inherently a little less secure than computers, but mostly because people don't really set them up to be secure. Having Tor on your Android phone might be a good idea. Let's see, onion names, oh, we got that. Hidden answers. Let's see if we can pick this up this time. and this one, and on this one. Now, there are a couple of sites when I was running the test today that just didn't come back to me. And yeah, Hidden Answers was one that wasn't, but it's working now. So it wasn't working earlier, but now it's working. Good deal. If you have a question and you want an answer, the Hidden Answers is a place where you can get that done. Are aliens real? If so, why? Do you believe in God? Going for foster care without parental consent? So there are interesting questions here. This has got to be a sad story in the background of this question here. How do I get rid of my parents? I'm a trans boy in my mid-teens living in Texas. So, you know, there you go. And Empire Market, this was the last dark market I had that I could take anybody to, and they're gone now. And there have been a couple of disruptions to the dark web we're going to be talking about in a bit. In fact, I think I might have to go back to my slides in order to, let's do that for a minute. Yeah, I was going to put this back up. There we go. So now we're into the dark side of the dark web. All the sites we're going to see from here on out are illegal sites, but I've got a couple of slides I want to, or not illegal sites, but they're doing illegal activities. Okay. The sites themselves are just sites. And, you know, but, you know, here's some dark web news, kind of fun stuff. Cop charged with selling phone traffic service on the dark web. A French police officer has been charged with using police intelligence data to power a mobile phone tracking service that he sold via the dark web, operating on the username Horace. See, you don't use your own name on the dark web. You know, rule number one, come up with a good alias. The officer allegedly sold the service via a dark website called the Black Hand. He also advertised sensitive information that criminals could use to forge documents. The Black Hand Forum, considered to be one of the most important illegal platforms on the dark web in France, was dismantled by French law enforcement in 2018. When they took down the Black Hand, they found this cop doing business on the dark web. So, you know, oops. So in this case, it didn't, you know, dark web didn't protect him very well. Okay, so there's a dark web hosting service called Daniel's Hosting. It was very popular because it was free. And Daniel ran this web server on his own nickel. And this was taken down 2 times. First, it was shuttered in 2018 when attackers stole or erased clean about 6,500 hidden services. So this is 6,500 websites that were just erased off the internet in one exploit. Okay. Represented about 30% of the dark web at the time, or about 6 million pages of, you know, web pages. Now on March 10th of 2020, which was just what, 2 months ago, been attacked again. This time 7,600 sites are lost. The host is still down and may not return. I got a link here about the sad story of Daniel's Hosting. So here's Daniel's homepage. On the first hack, he put up this, you know, this thing here. German police seize a bulletproof hosting data center in a former NATO bunker. So, you know, there are military facilities that have been abandoned, you know, all over the place, including quite a number of them in Europe. And you can buy them probably fairly cheaply. And this one, in September 26, 2019, data center in the former NATO military bunker in the town of Traben-Tarbach, Germany, was raided by police, according to a report by Associated Press, set up by a man whom authorities describe as 59-year-old Dutchman The cyber bunker offered bulletproof hosting services promising to keep hosted sites secure from law enforcement actions and operational regardless of legal demands. Bunker house servers for a multitude of dark websites selling drugs, hosting child porn, conducting other illegal activities. Among the sites was Wall Street Market, which authorities claim is one of the world's largest criminal marketplaces, selling drugs, stolen financial data, and hacking tools, until it was taken down early this year. So anyway, here's another. Now, this Wall Street Market, what the police do now is that when they take down these markets, they leave them up and running and continue to sell goods out of the marketplace in order to track the buyers, the shoppers. And so, when they take down one of these marketplaces, it's not one arrest, it's thousands of arrests that are going to happen when people go and they buy their illegal goods. And so for the police, this has become a wonderful way to scoop up and multiple gangs of cyber criminals all in one shot. So what can you buy on the dark web? Kinds of stuff you can buy on the dark web. For 25 bucks, you can get someone's personal identity, something known as a FULS, which stands for the full dossier. It includes full name, street address, phone numbers, email address and passwords, date of birth, social security number, or if it's a foreign ID, the equivalent set of information there. Bank account number, routing number, account type, online banking credentials, including passwords, and possibly answers to secret questions, credit card information, including track 2 data and associated PINs. So that's $25. I can get everything that I need to know in order to become you. And then I can go and buy a passport. I can buy a driver's license. I can get credit cards with, they're just credit cards made with your, with your credit card information. Other high value items include credit and debit cards. Credit cards, when I first started in cybersecurity, a credit card would cost you $100 to buy a, stolen credit card. And the thought was that you could easily get $100 worth of the value off of there. There are so many millions of stolen credit card numbers floating around the dark web now that the price has dropped to $3, $3 in volume. So if I want 1,000 credit cards, I can get them for $3 a piece, $3,000. I get 1,000 credit cards. These credit cards even come with a guarantee that they're usable. If you get a bunch of credit cards and some of them are, have been canceled, they'll the guy you bought them from, the crook you bought them from, will replace them with new numbers. So they've got customer service on the dark web, which is kind of cool. Exploit software kits, which is what my article in today's blog post was all about. Botnets. So if I need to attack somebody on the internet, one way to do that is to rent 1,000 computers and have all of those computers try to get access to that web server at the same time. And that's called a distributed denial of service attack, and you use a botnet to carry that off. $20 per 1,000 computers. So if I really, really hate you, I can spend $200 and get 10,000 computers and take your website down. Other services, or maybe I don't want to go to all that work. I can just contract with somebody to run distributed denial of service attack for me, $100 per day. Counterfeit US dollars and other currency, drugs, both prescription and illegal drugs. Yes, you can get those expensive prescription drugs that you can't afford here in the United States because they're like, the pharmacies are ripping us off. Anyway, you can get prescription and illegal drugs on these sites. Guns, weapons, munitions, you can buy a variety of services. So now we're going to take a look at some of the markets that aren't around anymore, but one of the more famous ones was the Silk Road, was an online black market and the first modern darknet market, best known as a platform for selling illegal drugs. Silk Road was run by Ross Ulbricht, who was his dark web name was the Dread Pirate Roberts. And if you're familiar with the movie The Princess Bride, you know very well who the Dread Pirate Roberts is. Well, Ross got arrested. And here's the before and after. So this is what Silk Road looked like. And here's the Onion address for it and stuff they were selling. And after the, Interpol took it over, this site's been seized by the FBI in conjunction with IRS, criminal and ICE, blah, 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 blah. So that was what Silk Road looked like after the federal government was. Now, this was one that I always used to like to go to. And it's not working right now today. And I think it's gone. I think they're gone. And I have to do some hunting in order to find these guys again. But we are at the end of the slides, and I'm going to go back to our, yep. So here's Linkbase. And we talked about this. I think I've written a blog article about this later. And what this is really about is links to different types of forums. And what I wanted to show you here is dumps from legendary. Yeah, look at, see Brian Krebs as a crab. They don't like him on the dark web. I guess, the height of my career will be when I get my little face on an animal body on some dark web marketplace. But here we have, promoted sites, but, we have a lot of languages represented here. Well, what this proves is the international nature, of course, of, activity on the dark web. This English list here, I haven't had time to get after this, but you can see very long list of sites. So, someday when I'm have a little bit more free time, I'll be clicking through this list, finding out what's going on. If I find a kind of forum I'm looking for, I'll probably join the forum, create an ID, and start communicating. But anyhow, this is Black Credit Card Mafia, Black Hat Board. It's a very long list. The only one that's even close is the Russian list, which they both go way down off the page, but the English list starts higher up the page. So that tells you everything you need to know about Russians and the United States. Full of, no, but in any event, that's Linkbase. I'm gonna pre-open a few of these here. Yeah, okay, so this is asking me for a password, but I don't really have to come up with it because the password, the username and password is right here. So Torchan3, Torchan3. So the first thing we'll start at is Cave Tour. And you'll see, here's our home. This is kind of on the order of being a market, but it's really much more of a kind of a link thing. So if I want to go shopping for drugs, I could click on this and then it'll get me, there we go. So these aren't actually part of this dark social network. This links away to other sites where you can get cannabis, LSD, meth, ooh, potassium cyanide, ooh, that sounds, Valium, yeah, there you go. Medical marijuana. It's all medical now, right? Moving along, here's Torchan, and this is the one that we had to sign into. But here you have, you know, we're on the home page, and there's, you know, different pages with information on them. So here's a Bitcoin cryptocurrency, and basically I can put my name, email, subject, and leave a message here. So looking for an onion escrow service that is reliable. Hi everyone, first of all I want to say I'm in the deep dark web from 1.5 years, know all the bullshit from here, know what is a scam and what is real, but this time it's no scam. Absolutely, I have a big problem. Yeah. So anyway, car accident 3 days ago, need 50,000 euros for surgery in Wien, which is Germany. But anyway, so this guy must be looking for, you know, a donation. I will trade Bitcoin for gift card from prestigiousmarket.com. Need money. And here's Galaxy 3. So this is kind of like an online social network. And then just because we've talked about Bitcoin a little bit, here's EasyCoin, your rocket fast Bitcoin wallet. So, you know, you can sign up for a Bitcoin account and fund it using dollars. I mean, you don't have to do anything. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat again, and I'll get back to your questions. Thank you for asking. But anyway, you can sign up for a Bitcoin wallet and fund it using, you know, regular cash and what have you. It's if you're going to spend any time, you know, working on the dark web and buying things, you would need to have some Bitcoin. So let's see, question, is there a way not to have your info available for purchase? Jessica, if you can use your microphone, go ahead and tell me what you mean by that. Don't have a mic. Okay, well, let me kind of, and then you have another question. Are there interpreters for foreign sites and forums? And the answer is not really. For foreign sites, you'll have to use, you know, like basically like screen scraping, like doing a copy paste and paste it in the Google Translate and just do the hard, you know, do the hard work required to do that. I know in the case of Brian Krebs, again, he learned Russian so that he could go into the Russian sites where it seemed like most of the credit card activity was happening. And, you know, so that's, is there a way not to have your info available for purchase? The thing that you want to make sure is that you don't leave any information available for a purchase. And, you know, I don't know, if you were thinking of like buying drugs and having them shipped to your home, well, you wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to find some sort of a mail drop that you could use that wasn't going to be asking too many questions, you know. And as far as like other stuff, I mean, you know, don't use your real name, don't use your real credit card. Why? Well, they're going to steal your credit card number for starters and buy all kinds of crap with your, you know, so no, you can't. You don't want to use a credit card. Hopefully that answered that question. Counterfeit US dollars. This is like my favorite site. I'm so tempted. Our notes are produced with cotton-based paper. They pass the pen and test without problems. UVI is incorporated, so they pass the UV test. They have all the necessary security features to be spent at most retailers. Free shipping in the US. So here we have, you know, I get $25, $50. Well, let's work on this one because it's easier to figure out here. It's $150 bills. So that's $5,000 in currency. Nice. But you got to pay for it with Bitcoin again. So if you're, you know, feeling dangerous, you can. Now, after I stumbled across this site, I you know, I went out and got a hold of some bigger bills, some $50 and $100 bills, tried spending them at different places. And they do tell, you know, the bill gets to a certain size, they put the pen on it, they put it under a UV light, and they do check. If I was going to pass counterfeit currency, I'd want to find out the stores where they weren't really good about doing it reliably, where it didn't happen all the time, or they're too busy, or they just don't care, or whatever. And that would be where I'd be dropping my, you know, I go in with my $50 bill, buy a $2 bag of chips, and put the rest of the cash, you know, eventually into a bank account somewhere, I suppose. But anyway, counterfeit USD, I'm just theoretically, it's nothing I'm doing. The People's Drugstore. I told you we'd go here, and these people are very proud of their heroin. The heroin we offer comes direct from the importer, no middleman. White, light beige in color. Take great pride in the fact we do not cut our product whatsoever. What's the difference between number 3 and number 4 heroin? So you can get, you know, a little education about heroin, and then, you know, go ahead and spend a little money on your heroin. But they also offer, you know, cocaine, ecstasy, speed, cannabis, and prescriptions. Now, there's a really fascinating book called The Mastermind about a guy who set up probably the biggest underground pharmaceutical business ever on the planet. A lot of very fun read. And all of the drugs were perfectly, legal drugs, legal prescriptions, and what have you. But there was, in Brian Krebs' book, they talked about the Canadian pharmaceutical business that was really run out of Russia on drugs that were manufactured in India and China. And again, these were like legitimate drugs. They didn't have the quality control that they had in the United States, but they were, in fact, if you didn't like a shipment, they'd send you another one or refund your money. Great, customer service again. So, it's weirdly, it's run just like any business, and they're looking for return and repeat customers just like any business. And so they tend not to rip you off. They tend to actually be pretty reliable, supposedly. Here's one, brand new, just added it to the tour. Black market guns. They've got all kinds of like fun little weapons here. An Uzi. Here's a, Slovakian P07 9mm. So yes, you can go on the dark web and go, get some. Here's the Onion Identity Services. You can buy passports. Lithuania. These guys are specializing in Lithuania, Netherlands, Denmark, Great Britain, and Canadian. Then they have ID cards from Czech, Netherlands, Denmark, French, Lithuanian. I'm supposing because these are the easiest to counterfeit. But, you know, Norway driver's license. Now, Netherlands showed up 3 times. So if you were getting the whole collection, I guess I'd, you know, Netherlands ID, driver's license, ID card, and a passport. And now I'm, you know, now I'm Dutch. Here's another fake ID store. This is for driver's license, you know, United States. So $200 for a Wisconsin driver's license. They don't have all the states, but they have a few. This one's my favorite one. So, you know, we have a big wall along the southern border to keep out, you know, people who weren't born here. Well, with the right kind of money, like $1,000. Well, this is your first payment, $1,000 of $3,000. So for $3,000, you can get a real U.S. passport and become a citizen of the U.S. Bulletproof U.S. passports, social security number, driver's license, and birth certificate, other papers will make you an official citizen of the United States. It'll even work if you're not in the USA yet. How do we do it? Trade secret. But anyway, you know, matrix image uploader. So we had a question earlier about, you know, to transfer images and songs and videos. And yes. And this image uploader, I gotta remember to click on enter the matrix. Basically, this is a place where you can upload pictures and share them with other people. I can't imagine what kind of pictures. I'm sure I don't want to look into it too deeply. This is probably, you know, a site that'll be rated eventually when they take down some big child pornography ring. But in the meanwhile, there's, you know, place to do this. Now we get into my line of work here, into the hacker stuff. There's Rent a Hacker and Hacker Place. So Rent a Hacker, experience offering his services. Illegal hacking and social engineering is my business since I was 16 years old, never had a real job. So I had the time to get really good at hacking, and I made a good amount of money in the last 20 years. So this is another guy like me who's been at his job for 20 years. Well, he's been doing the illegal stuff. I love this. I am not doing this to make a few bucks here and there. I'm not from some crappy East European country and happy to scam people for 50 euros. I'm a professional computer expert who could earn 50 to 100 euros an hour in a legal job. So anyway, he's, you know, got all his skills, social engineering. I'll do anything for money. I'm not a person that would be unwilling. You might want me to destroy some business or personal life. I'll do it. Blah, blah, blah. So here you have, you know, and this is in euros, so we figure European. But, you know, it's close to 1-for-1 for dollars. So, you know, about $1,000, large job. It takes a few days, what have you. We have Hacker Place. And let's see if we can open up a couple more of these while we're waiting. Hacker Place. Ooh. All right. Haven't run across this before. Yeah, more internal tools, added 100 books on hacking. So here's a, you know, kind of a hacking books, links, how to danger of lost and found thumb drives, best time to send email, phishing on Twitter. Then there's PayPal store or a credit card pal store. This is basically where you can buy PayPal accounts, eBay accounts, or credit cards. And as you can see, I got 100 credit cards, $150. So about $1.50 a credit card. So my $3 price earlier was a little out of date, I guess. And this one, top cards, doesn't seem to be coming up. But I saved the best one for last. These guys are creepy. So you want to hire a hitman? Here you go. Now, the thing you have to appreciate about a site like this is that it could be being run by the cops. I mean, you just don't know who these people are really. But here we are. We're an international body of hitmen having hitman connection in about 37 countries around the world, and associates who are mafias in different countries and have power and connections within their jurisdiction. So you want to know how much, right? Sharpshooter, sniper, that's $15,000 to $25,000. So if you want it done from a long way away, you got to pay for the skill. Knife attack, $20,000 to $30,000. Poison, $35,000 to $45,000. Severe torture to death. Oh my God. Yeah. And it's like, 45 grand. So you want to kill a guy, but you really want him to suffer, I don't think anybody's ever ticked me off that much, but in case you're, just up for a little mayhem, bio attack, paralyzing, depriving of vision, or, torture, 10,000. Or if you just want to give somebody a good beating, $2,000. So, I don't have a lot of money. Can you just give the guy a good beating for me? Yeah, sure. We'll send out, Hugo. He'll do it. But anyway, that's my live tour. And we finished up a little quicker than I thought I would. Didn't miss too many places, though. Any questions at all before we call it an evening? See if I missed anything in my slides that comes at the end here. No. Well, yeah, maybe. So here's some. This is of course in the handout, but here are some sources for deep web links, deep website links, HelpNet security at Black Hand dark web market. And then there's if you want to get a hold of me, you certainly may. For what it's worth, it's not all about instruction. I do consult with people about issues that they're having, and I started out 20 years ago just doing simple computer repairs. I still I won't turn it away. So if you're having some kind of situation and you'd like to get an informed opinion, feel free. Any questions about what we did so far today?
If somebody infects my computer with ransomware, can you solve that?
Sometimes. Okay, and it really depends on what particular strain of ransomware. Some of these guys aren't too clever about hiding the encryption key, and so it can be reversed, but I would say more often than not more often than not, you're out of luck. You know, you need to have like a backup somewhere else that wasn't also contaminated. I see I've got a comment here from Jessica. Did you say that if you're going to browse the dark web, you should do it on a computer designated for it? I think that's your best idea. If you are seriously interested in pursuing this as a hobby, which is what I'm doing, I guess. I don't know, it's sort of a professional hobby, but still, um, I'm like a guy with a model train set, but I own a model train store, so, um, you know, call me or send me an email and I'll tell you how to do it properly. There's basically like two good ways to do it. One is just to take like an old computer you don't use anymore and set it up with Linux and Tor and just go with that. Or the other way is on a computer that you may be using to set up a virtual machine. Yeah, for Linux, just about any old computer will work. If it still powers up and starts, if it's running Windows 7 or, even Windows XP for crying out, but, you'd have something maybe running Windows 7 um, that would probably be fine for that, yeah. Any other questions?
If you're going on a trip to some foreign countries or many different, whether Europe or Africa or Asia, and you want to carry on your normal internet activities, would it be better to do it through Tor?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that I'd like to warn people about is when you're traveling, um, connecting to your online banking, you need to be really, really sure about that network. Um, so if you've connected to a wireless network and it did not require you to have the access code to log, to get into it, that access code is not really a password. It's an encryption key that encrypts that traffic from your laptop to the wireless access point and back. And so you'd want to make sure that anytime you're doing like online banking or something like that, that you're on a good, reliable network. The most reliable wireless network when you're traveling is the wireless hotspot that's built into your smartphone. Turn that thing on and use that. And yeah, it goes against your data minutes, but way cheaper. Did that answer your question? Kind of?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, if you can connect to your bank computer through Tor, that would be a great way to do your online banking. Then it doesn't matter what kind of crappy Wi-Fi you're on. You can be on an open Wi-Fi and well, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to walk back from that statement. One of the problems with using open Wi-Fi is that, somebody with a laptop and a couple pieces of software can actually capture your session flying through the air on the beams of the radio signal. And since it's not encrypted, it's easy to read, the username and password information and stuff like that. Any further questions, anyone? So what did you think of the tour? Was it for or? I feel a little bit like the guy that's, got a bus full of tourists and we're doing 7 countries in 5 days, kind of a thing. So in the absence of any further questions, you can feel free to, I mean, this is it for content here. So, feel free to leave, and otherwise I'll hang around until there are no more questions. And it's been fun for me to to teach this. This is my second time doing a Zoom class for community ed. Something tells me we'll be doing more of these, even if we all get to come out and go places again. But in any event, thanks for participating.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Excellent.
Sometime when
Thanks,
I'm
Bob.
just,
Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, you were saying sometimes.
when I got a lot of time when I'm just sitting at home, I'm going to dig into this further.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if Jessica, if you're still on, you are. If you're seriously diving into the deep end of the pool, at least give me a call or send me an email, and I'll work you through the particulars on how to do it in a manner that is safer. I won't say safely because there is no safely, but there's the smart way and then there's the bad way. So we'll just drop me an email and we'll talk about it. So I'm going to pop that down. So if there are no further, I'm just going to officially end the meeting. Thanks again.
Thanks, Bob.